Greetings, Cyberdogs and citizens of the interbubs. This is Rendog coming at you in another Minecraft episode from the Hermitcraft server. Welcome, Hermitcraft fans from all over the world, to a very special episode of Minecraft from Hermit Island. Believe it or not, friends, it is episode 70 of our Season 6 series, and I thought it was about time that we spent an episode taking a look at all of the awesome things that we have been up to here on the Hermitcraft server. Last night, I put a list together, and guys, my goodness, for the last 9 months, we've been pretty busy. So today we're taking a little bit of a break from all of the crafting that we've been doing out here in the Fantasy District. And my friends, we are going to go on a journey together across the Hermitcraft server, taking a look at all of the fancy jazz that we have made in the 70 episodes we've done in the series so far. So sit back and relax, my friends. I hope you've got a tasty beverage and something crunchy to snack on, because it's world tour time, baby. I'm actually really excited for this tour, guys. Last night, while planning this episode, I realized that if you're a brand new viewer of the Rendog, you probably think that all we've managed to do on the Hermitcraft server so far is build a giant dragon and a floating island. But in fact, we have been doing a ton of awesome projects all over the show. And because our projects have been so spread out this season, you can't really see them all in one place. So it kind of looks like we've done less than we have. So for our very first stop on the tour, welcome to the Stacks for Stacks Tavern. This was the first major build that I threw up on the server, and it was supposed to be a place that the hermits could come and sleep and get some food at the very beginning of the season, where things were rather dangerous around here on Hermit Island. Doesn't look like much has changed, still a couple of zombies wandering around the place. So I chose to build this tavern in a rather strategic location over here, which is on the shoreline of the medieval district. At the time, the only building actually functioning in this area was the enchanting room over there, which is now known as Bumbo Enchantoni. And I thought setting up a safe house quite close to where a ton of hermits were doing a lot of enchanting was a very good idea. This giant lake over here is also known as Aquatown. It is the center of Hermit Island, and as we started this server on the Aquatic update, I thought there would be a ton of hermits floating around on a boat, and when the dread of night approached the Hermitcraft server, I thought this would be a nice place for them to come and lay their boat down there and come and sleep the night away and get themselves a tasty bit of food. Now, the business model for the Stacks for Stacks Tavern is a rather interesting one. At the time, I was starting to think about my first major project on the server, which was going to be the Hermit Railway Network that we're going to take a look at a little bit later today. And I thought that this might be a good opportunity to start stocking up on some rails and some iron and some gold so that we could start producing the thousands of rail bits that we would need for our railway network project. I had a lava blade chicken farm in my starting cave, and I was producing a ton of chicken. So I started selling chicken here in the tavern for either a diamond or for one of the rail bits. And for the first couple months on the server, this place actually did pretty good. Although most of the hermits gave me rails and iron for chicken rather than diamonds, which I would come to regret a little bit later, as I was pretty poor for the start of the season. But yeah, this was the tavern, and the hermits could come up here and have a nice little sleep. They could put their stuff down in a chest, and I'm pretty sure that over the course of the season, a ton of hermits have enjoyed a tasty roast meal here in the Stacks for Stacks Tavern and a nice warm bed to sleep the night away. I also added a tip jar to the tavern to try and supplement for the fact I wasn't getting any diamonds for cooked chicken, but unfortunately, the hermits haven't really tipped me that well, other than some coal and some dirt and 3 spectral arrows. Thanks, hermits! Now, it didn't take me very long to realize that my chicken business was not going to be quite as lucrative as I had anticipated. That's because most of the hermits by that stage had already sorted out their own food supplies, and chicken sales dried up pretty quickly. That's when we arrived here in the shopping district to set up our very first business on the server, known as Big Logs Incorporated. Now, for those of you guys who are maybe new to Rendog on the Hermitcraft server, selling logs is kinda my thing. I joined the server in Season 4, and we had a shopping district on that particular server, and Azuma and I set up a log business known as the Log Fellas. And ever since then, selling logs is what I do best. And, well, we set up this massive log shop over here, known as Big Logs Incorporated. And it is, of course, a giant tree stump in which you can buy every single type of log in the game. I also set up a little bit of redstone for this. It was my first bit of redstone that I made on the server. If you stand on the pressure plate, it rotates through all of the different blocks that you can make out of that particular log that you are purchasing over here. And yeah, very nice, simple little shop. Hermits can come here and pick up a stack of logs for a single diamond. It was actually 2 diamonds when he first set up the shop because I was kind of poor and I needed to make myself some diamonds. But at the moment, it is nice and cheap. 1 stack of logs for a diamond. What a bargain. Now, one of the most prominent features of this log shop is this massive axe wedged into the side of the tree over here. And, well, if you weren't here for the beginning of the season, I did not actually make that axe. That axe was created by the newest hermit on the server, Grian. Now, this was actually one of the very first pranks on the server that was a part of another prank that Cubfan actually did on us. Cubfan dug into the side of our tree and set up a little log shop of his own called Undercut, and he managed to convince Grian that a giant axe would complement the build. In fact, Grian knew absolutely nothing about the prank that Cubfan was doing on him, and he just sort of built this as a part of what Cubfan was doing. And in response, I went over to Grian's base and built a giant tree filled with TNT, which was my way to welcome Grian to the server. And yeah, that kind of led to one of the first big pranks on the server, which was me almost blowing up Grian and blowing up his base. Good times. With Big Logs now up and running, I started to make a rather tasty profit on the server, and that meant I could turn my attention to my first major project for the season, which was going to be the Hermit Railway Network. My ambition was to connect every single corner of Hermit Island to a central railway hub that I would call Grand Central Station. And for the next couple of months or so, that is the project that I focused on. Unfortunately, at the time, things weren't exactly rich on the Hermitcraft server. We didn't have a huge amount of glass available, or quartz, or concrete for that matter, and the build took much longer than it actually needed to. I probably should have waited until the infrastructure of the server was a little bit more advanced so that I could get resources a little bit more quickly. I spent so many countless hours grinding for all of the blocks that were required here for Grand Central Station, but all of those many hours of grind have paid off in the best of ways, guys, because Grand Central Station is certainly one of my proudest builds that I've ever done on any Hermitcraft server, not only because I think it looks really cool, but because from this central hub has spawned an absolute spider web of railway lines traveling to every single section of Hermit Island, and it's turning into an absolutely amazing railway project. Now, there's actually more to Grand Central Station than meets the eye, guys, which is one of the things that I really like about the build. It looks like a giant tasty donut, but it actually contains a bunch of really cool things. Starting with this giant tube in the center of the hub. This is the way that the hermits can get in and out of Grand Central using an elytra, and of course at the bottom of it we have access to the nether hub via these nether portals. We've also got 4 fully functioning terminals in Grand Central Station, which will take you to the various smaller stations that are dotted around the island, and it is all automatic. If you want to leave Grand Central Station, you can do so via a beautifully automatic minecart loading mechanism, and if you're coming into Grand Central Station, you will be popped out of the minecart, and that minecart will be recycled into the system. And yeah, the station is actually functioning almost like a real-life station, which is really, really sweet. And for me, the most important thing about the Hermit Railway Network is the fact that it has united a bunch of hermits on the server, and so many of the hermits have been helping me with this particular project, building stations of their own at all of the different corners of the island. And without their help, there is absolutely no ways that I would be able to finish the Hermit Railway Network project. So a big thanks to all of the hermits that have been helping to make the HRN becoming a reality. So how many of you guys can remember that rather insignificant event known as the Hermitcraft Civil War? You know what? I don't blame you if you can't remember, guys. It was only the biggest prank war that has ever happened in Hermitcraft history. And I think I'm proud to say that its origins came from one of my builds. Is that a good thing to be proud of? This is, of course, the Hermitcraft Stock Exchange, which was my next major project that I started with Doc M77. Doc and I had watched The Wolf of Wall Street, and we suddenly had some major plans to get majorly rich on the Hermitcraft server. And the idea was that all of the different businesses on the Hermitcraft server could come and list their stocks here in the stock exchange, and then other hermits would be able to buy the stocks from them. And we were going to sort of rake a little bit of profits off the top. Now, this building, as you can probably tell, is completely made out of quartz, which meant I was spending a ridiculous amount of diamonds in Grian's traveling market store, because he was selling a bunch of quartz at the time. I completely bought out quartz shorts and warts, and I spent a ridiculous amount of time in the nether, as did Doc, helping me grind out all of the quartz. And well, the idea, of course, was to make this stock exchange look as epic as possible. We wanted it to look like an amazing Greek mausoleum of spending, I suppose, and I gotta say, it turned out real fancy. We even have a little bit of an office in the back here where Doc and I do our business, and down there is the heart of what is a very amazing redstone door that Doc built. The redstone door takes anyone who is trading on the stock exchange down to the vaults of the stock exchange, and to open this thing, we have to turn the head 7 times. My head and Doc's head. And that is the vault door opening. Isn't that amazing? One of the best redstone doors that I've ever seen. That is, of course, the work of Doc M77. And Doc did all of the redstone here for the Hermitcraft Stock Exchange. It's an absolutely beautiful build. Love the way it all works, and we even get a little bit of elevator music on our way down to the vault. Now, when the stock exchange first opened, we actually did pretty well, and a lot of hermits made a lot of cash. However, at some point, a whole bunch of diamonds got stolen here in the stock exchange, and it was that exact theft that led to the Hermitcraft Civil War. And not only did those stolen diamonds lead to a prank war, they would also eventually be the catalyst for the Jangler mystery and the birth of Sherlock, Grian, Renson, and Doxon. Good times. Now, during that dark period of the Hermitcraft Civil War, most of us hermits put our major projects on hold to try and win the battle at the end of the day. But after the dust had settled across the battlefield, I got back to working on the Hermit Railway network. Not only had a bunch of new stations popped up all over Hermit Island, myself and a few hermits had started to work on the railway lines themselves. And I started to work on a number of lines on the network, including the shopping district line, the line in the northern district, and a mega long line in the medieval district, and of course, my latest line, which is the futuristic district line. I don't know what it is about rails, guys, but I really do love them, especially when I can see them snaking across Hermit Island like this. So freaking awesome. Now, before we take a look at some of the newer builds that we've done this season, I want to give a few minutes to the unsung heroes of us professional Minecrafters. For many of us hermits on the server, we would not be able to pull off the big projects that we do without a creative test world. And this very janky, super flat place is my little creative test world. And here is where I spend a lot of time working on bigger projects in creative Minecraft. Now, it may seem counterintuitive to build something in a creative world and then rebuild it again on the Hermitcraft server, but actually doing it this way saves us hermits a ton of time. In a creative world, it's much easier to try different things and swap blocks out very quickly and work on the really massive design projects without having to do it all in survival Minecraft. Of course, on the server, we got to collect all of the resources. We got to break the blocks manually and place them again. So it actually saves us a ton of time to sketch out these big projects in creative and then do it on the server. And yeah, it's just a little something I wanted to show you guys to give you a bit of insight into what goes on behind the scenes on the Hermitcraft server. Pretty cool. And speaking of unsung heroes, I couldn't get through this base tour without giving a quick shout out to the Big Logs Industrial Island. This is a small little island that I inhabit off the coast of Hermit Island, and I've probably spent a quarter of my entire season on this island. This is the place where I do a lot of the grind work off camera. This is where I get a ton of wood and other resources. You can see at the moment I'm growing dark oak wood trees en masse to stock the log shop that we had a look at a little bit earlier on. And interestingly enough, this was the place where I kept the majority of my items for most of the season until I created my very first storage facility back at the Dragon Gorge base. We're going to take a look at that a little bit later, but we definitely wouldn't have got to where we are right now in Season 6 without this little industrial island in the middle of nowhere. So big shout out to the island of jank and many, many hours of wood and cactus choppage. And one more quick shout out to my bacon mine on the Hermitcraft server. It is definitely not the prettiest thing, as you can see, but this is quite a ridiculous achievement in some ways. This is, of course, a beacon mine all the way out at the mining desert of the Season 6 server. And as you guys can see, hundreds of thousands of blocks have been mined out of my beacon mine here. I've spent many an hour down here just listening to music and efficiency 5ing my way through tens of thousands of blocks on the search for diamonds and, of course, to collect all of the resources that we need for the big rocks shop. Of course, selling all of those resources back to the hermits. But yeah, beacon mines are an exceptionally efficient way in Minecraft to get yourself the resources that you need. You set your beacons up at level 11, you mine all of the blocks around the beacon, and then you move the beacon to the next position, and you just keep doing that until you have literally ripped out a giant chunk from your Minecraft world, as you can see here. But yeah, mad shout out to the bacon mine. Ugliest place that I have on the server, but absolutely indispensable. Now, as the season progressed, it became increasingly obvious that Concorp was a force to be reckoned with here on the server. They had their eyeballs on many industries and many different shops, and they were definitely keen to get into the log business. Even though I shut down their very first log shop due to a termite infestation, as they built it directly in the side of the Big Logs Incorporated shop, they set up another log shop very shortly afterwards, known as the Concorp Barge. They started selling logs at a much cheaper rate than the Big Logs Incorporated shop was selling them, and that meant the Rendog needed to up his game in the log production department. And this led quite nicely to our very first business partnership on the server, and that was with the awesome Impulse SV. Impulse had built an amazing log cutting factory in the industrial district. It is an automatic redstone machine that uses TNT to cut down every single log type in Minecraft, except for dark oakwood logs, which is why we use the industrial island to cut down dark oakwood logs. But Impulse and I decided to go into business together, and that became my next big project on the Hermitcraft server. I worked on the design and the construction of the outside of the lumber mill, and Impulse, of course, did the amazing redstone on the inside. And that meant we were able to produce logs at a much faster and cheaper rate than Concorp could, and so we took control of the log business back on the server, and I now share the profits of logs 50-50 with Impulse SV, and this massive building over here is where we produce all of our logs. Just don't tell Ren Bob. Now, even though our partnership with Impulse meant we took firm control of the log industry on the server, guys, profits began to dwindle for me. And that's because, of course, I was now sharing my log profits with Impulse, and we had lowered the price of logs in the store. And that meant it was time for the Rendog to diversify his income. It was around this time that I had a rather bacon-tastic epiphany, guys. What I realized was that I had gathered literally tens of thousands of building blocks from my beacon mine, and that a ton of the hermits on the server don't really enjoy mining themselves. So, what better way to make a profit on the server than to sell all of the rocks that I had been digging out of the bacon mine to the hermits? And that is when I sent up Big Rocks Incorporated, which was my next big shop here on the server. And in this shop, we sell all of the different things that you can get out of a beacon mine, all of the basic building blocks in Minecraft, from cobblestone to andesite to smooth stone to granite. We don't sell diorite right though. And so Big Rocks Incorporated became my next project on the server, guys, and it was inspired a little bit by this pirate ship over here. The idea being that I wanted to create a bit of a pirate docking area where that ship would be bringing cargo ashore, and that cargo was these rocks, or perhaps that ship was coming here to buy in bulk all of these building materials and whatnot. So yeah, I set up this really cool little pirate area. We've got some old-fashioned towers and all of these bridges and whatnot. Now, unfortunately, I must admit we haven't made too much of a profit from Big Rocks Incorporated, and that's because most of the hermits have beacon mines of their own. But yeah, if any of the hermits need rocks, they know where to come. You know, one of the things I enjoy most about being a hermit, guys, is that there is a comment section on my videos. And from my comment section, I learn so many things. I get so many ideas. I get so much inspiration. And without the audience out there, I don't think I'd be able to do half of the stuff that I've done so far in my time on Hermitcraft. Now, about halfway through the season, I read a comment on one of my videos that made me realize that even though I had done all of this stuff on the Hermitcraft server so far, I didn't actually have a base. I started the Hermitcraft season living inside of this mound underneath us, and our neighbor over here is False Symmetry. False Symmetry lived on this side of this little river here, and we lived on this side, but Falsey built a base while we lived inside of a hole. So, it was about time for us to actually start working on a place to live in Season 6, and that is exactly what we have been doing now for the last couple of months. We have been building up what is slowly but surely becoming the Dragon Gorge base. Now, at the start of the season, False Symmetry and I did talk about sharing a base area for Season 6, and that's exactly what we did, although I kind of slacked a little bit. Falsey built up an amazing base area while I spent my time in the shopping district of Hermitcraft trying to make a profit. But as soon as all of my shopping projects were done, guys, I returned my attention here to the fantasy district on Hermit Island, and the first thing that I did was install a custom nether portal out here, which takes us into the nether hub of the server. And this nether portal was basically the start of the inspiration that would bring us to where we are right now in our Dragon Gorge base. Down there in that ravine is where we started our base halfway through the season, and I'm not entirely sure why I decided to make my base in a ravine, but I thought it was a pretty cool place to actually start living, especially considering it was directly in between Falsey and I, and this was an area that we could share as a base together, which was pretty cool. Now, at the time, I didn't really have a base to speak of. I just had the Big Logs Industrial Island where I was cutting down trees, and I thought maybe the first thing that we could do is install some sort of an auto smelter. And actually, when I started working on my base here, this is where I started to get a little bit of a taste for the redstone. And since then, we have been installing some really impressive redstone gadgets around our base, starting with this auto smelting facility. This is known as the Ferry auto smelter. The idea is that we got a whole bunch of fairies that live inside of these furnaces, and when we need to smelt something, we give those fairies some food, which is what we want to smelt, and we give them a bit of fuel too. And via some redstone magic, all of those items get delivered into the furnaces. You can see the glass is getting smelted here, and the fuel gets delivered into them too. And the idea is that when you look at that fairy house, we can see the fairy is in there, right? The lights are on, so to speak, and they are doing the work of smelting down the glass. And there we go. The fairies have been hard at work smelting that glass, and it is now arriving for collection in this chest over here. So this was our very first build in our new base, an auto smelting facility that isn't exactly the most efficient auto smelting facility, but it's pretty dang cool if you ask me. Now, the next most important thing for any Minecrafter's base is a place to store your items, and I decided to not only make a storage facility, but to make an auto sorting storage facility. Not only was my storage facility going to be auto sorting via redstone, it was also going to be, well, kind of massive and a little bit weird. We've got a spiral staircase here that runs all the way down to the bottom of bedrock, and all the way around the spiral staircase we are storing the items that we need here in Minecraft. Behind all of these chests we can see the redstone, and the items are delivered into the system via this hopper chain, and this is of course feeding the items into all of their chests via an item filter in the redstone. There's also another cool thing about this auto sorting facility. If you chuck an item down there into that water, that item will eventually get re-delivered into the system and stored into its chest somewhere along the chain over here. And yeah, guys, I guess the inspiration for this very weird storage facility came from the pit down there. I wanted to have a storage facility where I could just chuck items into a water stream at the bottom, and all of those items would eventually get sorted and stored for me. And yeah, it's not exactly the most efficient storage facility in the world, but as you can see, it is pretty cool. Next up on our base project, guys, we installed a little bit of a vine farm over here, a rather rudimentary way to chop and collect vines, but vines have become a very important part of our base because we use a lot of mossy stone and a lot of mossy cobblestone, and well, we use a lot of vines also, and this is where I harvest my vines. As you can see, those vines get automatically delivered into the sorting system and stored for us, so that's all nice and automated. Now, for those of you guys who've been watching me for a while, you will know that I'm not exactly the best redstoner on planet Earth. However, when I do redstone, what I like to try and do is incorporate redstone into my builds. I want to try and make the redstone bring whatever I'm doing to life, and that's exactly what we have over here. This is known as the Schalke Shark 3000, and this is a way for us to empty out our shulker boxes into our sorting system. One of the frustrations that I was having was that I would go and work on a project on the Hermitcraft Island, and then I would come back with a whole bunch of items, and I just wanted some way to magically put all of those items into my sorting facility without having to do it manually, and that's exactly what we do here with the Schalke Shark 3000. All we need to do is place our shulker box on top of these hoppers, and those hoppers will start feeding the items into this water stream of our vine farm over here. You can see the items coming out, and that will eventually get added into our sorting facility. And well, once all of the shulker boxes that we add to this row have been emptied out, we can hit this lever and the shulker box will get removed automatically for us so that we can pick it up and the shulker box doesn't get added into the sorting facility too. So, rather nice, snazzy little bit of redstone. Nothing special, but another nice addition to our base. Now at this point, our base was coming along rather nicely, guys. We had a bunch of fancy redstone machines doing some automatic work for us. However, the base was lacking some sort of a story. It didn't really have a reason for being, and that's when we started to work on some of the really big aesthetic upgrades that we've been doing here in the Fantasy District, starting with this massive dragon skeleton. Now, the inspiration for this dragon skeleton actually came from my fan server build team, who had built something similar on one of our servers, and I thought it was so cool, I wanted to build a dragon skeleton of my own on the Hermitcraft server. Little did I know that it would be this dragon skeleton that would result in the lore and the story of our base, slowly but surely coming together over the last few months. Now, not only did this dragon skeleton spark my own imagination, but it certainly got the imagination of my viewers going too, and over the last few weeks or so, we have been working really hard trying to figure out a lore and a story as to why this massive dragon ended up dying here in the Fantasy District. And all of that creative thinking has resulted in a number of new builds arriving here at our Dragon Gorge base. One of them being, of course, the Dragonstone, which is one of our most recent builds, this really awesome looking relic that is floating above the earth. This relic is so powerful that it actually ripped a piece of the earth out, and that's why we've got this sort of floating island over here. Now, all of this dragon lore goodness has sparked some really cool ideas over the last couple of weeks or so, including the development of some very cool little sugarcane farms. This is a sugarcane farm that is triggered by an observer block, and the sugarcane that gets collected actually gets sent into the storage facility via some item aqueducts, which is pretty sweet. Not exactly the fastest way to collect sugarcane, but we've got 6 of these bad boys running whenever this chunk is loaded, so over time we will be collecting a bunch of sugarcane to be used as a trading source with villagers in 1.14. And that brings us full circle back to where we started our tour on the bones of the dragon and in view of our latest project on the Hermitcraft server, which is this massive tower we started building in the previous episode. This is going to become a new brewing facility for the Hermits, which is our latest big project on the server. Now, I think that covers pretty much everything that we've done so far in Season 6. Are we forgetting something?
Hey man, don't forget about the Ren Bibbidi Bob, man. We still got some sandals and some dream catchers for sale, man. I needed a bit of gas money and gotta fix the gasket on my van. If you guys got any loose change out there, man, it'd really be greatly appreciated, man. No more sludge! No more sludge! No more sludge!
Nope, that's everything. And that, my friends, brings us to the end of our Season 6 World Tour for this episode. I do hope you guys have enjoyed it. I had such a blast looking back on all of the stuff that we've done so far, and I'm actually really excited about all of the stuff that we are going to do in the next part of Season 6. Man, so many cool projects in my brain, and Very much looking forward to getting some more inspiration from you guys. If you have any ideas, you know what to do. Hit me up in the comment section below. Guys, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the world tour, smash that like button like nobody's business. But that's it for me on the Hermitcraft server today, guys. Thank you for watching. Rendog signing out, and we'll smell you all in the next episode.